chapter, we're going to look at these doshas. We're going to get really clear on understanding them as how they relate to our body. Because although they relate to weather patterns and all sorts of cycles, today we really want to understand how it relates to us as our own constitution and also a present imbalance. So what is a dosha? Who's heard of this word before? Anyone? We've got a few people. Now, a lot of people translate the dosha as a body type or constitution, our inherent traits, characteristics, and tendencies. Now, if you just stick with this translation, you miss out on so much. Really, the dosha is a functional principle of reality. The next one. So it governs how reality dominantly functions. So does it function in a building way because there's more kapha? Does it function in a heat and a regulating way because there's more pitta? Does it function in a letting go way because there's more vata? Now, metabolic principles is how modern science, naturopathy, they like to translate dosha as metabolic principles. How does our body like to metabolize things? So it can show what is our dominant way to metabolize foods and substances. They're only seen through inference, but their signs and signals are everywhere. Now, what this means is that you don't go, oh, there's vata and there's pitta. You see the signs to know that vata or pitta is there. Just imagine that you smell smoke and you're like, oh, I can smell smoke. That's an inference. I think there must be a fire. So then you're like, oh, I want more clues. So I'm going to look out the window. Oh, I see smoke. That's another inference. But with a dosha, you'll never be able to go, now I see fire. You will never be able to go, now I see pitta. All you can do is add up the qualities. The more qualities, the more likelihood that that dosha is dominant. So in the appendix, I've given you a list of all of the qualities for body and your mind that will tell you of what is your dominant body type, your constitution, your inherent traits, characteristics, and tendencies. Don't think that it's so important, you need to do it now. Spend some time on working through that at home. Really check through. Now, it's ideal if a doctor or a practitioner really examines you to get it perfect, so don't take it too religiously. Take it as a general rule. Don't get fixed into a body type. Think of yourself as a constantly changing and evolving being, and that this might be the most balancing. Lean towards it. Extremes are not what we want. So when an Ayurvedic doctor sees you, he sees the signs of these all over your body, in the shape of your eyes, the shape of your lips, the way in which you move, the way in which you talk. It doesn't matter what it is that you do, there's a ratio of Vata, Pitta, and Kapha inside that. The direct translation of dosha is actually defect. Now this shows why this dosha has such a huge influence on disease. That excess of these doshas is the main thing that creates disease for us all. So we really need to be aware of if we're leaning to too much dosha, it will start to create a defect in our body, creating an excess of a certain function. Let's start to see how it is in a physical body so we can see it visually. Vata is more catabolic. This is a Western word that means to break things apart. So we saw it pull the family apart, but in the body it means it's breaking the tissue apart all the time. My body has a lot of vata. I eat something, it's break it apart, gone. It's always breaking things apart. So the next dosha is pitta. It's more metabolic, which means it can break things up and build things, break it up, constantly moving back and forth. It still has a fairly thin body, but it has a bit more muscular definition. We see with our Nicole Kidman here, she's also got red hair. So there's that fiery red, passionate. That's a lot of these pitta qualities. The next dosha is kapha. It's more anabolic, which means it builds things up really easily. It can produce more tissue and more size very quickly. So these are looking at that life, building, regulating, separating. What do we have more of inside our body? Then we may need to balance that. You may be born with a lot more kapha. So there's no good or bad. Your skill is building things up. So you may need to work on your life of letting things go, doing practices that allow the body to let go more. So what have we got here for excess and deficiency? Balance. We see that Kapha is more prone to excess. Now if we start to look at qualities, it's more prone to heavy fluids. Pitta still may be prone towards heat. Yeah? And Vata is deficiency. Fluids, cold, the whole lot, and it goes with it. So you start to define what type of deficiency do we have? What type of excess do we have? Is it more of a cold that was happening to you? Then we would need to integrate more warm. Yeah? We didn't see that you went into dryness as an example. Your body all of a sudden got really dry and thin. It was like it got cold. So it showed us which thing we needed to balance. More of the Kapha was needed to balance for you, to oppose. Yeah? So this word Prakruti denotes our constitution, our birth nature. What is the original nature that we were born with? So it's our psychophysiological makeup of a person. What is our psychological and body type? It's formed at conception by the combination of Vata, Pitta and Kapha in the mother, father and our environment at the moment when the egg and sperm unite. It's right in the beginning is when this Prakruti is born. Now, although it may correlate to genetics, it's not a direct correlation because it's also influenced by what season was it at that time? What were the people thinking at that time? How was their sexual interaction at that time? Was it beautiful and spiritual, or was it angry and other things? All of these will influence that unification of what creates the Prakruti, the birth nature. It does not change over your whole life except in rare supernatural cases. Easy translation is that which goes out of balance the easiest. So if you've got more Kapha, then it's going to be easier for you to go out of balance with Kapha qualities. If you've got more Pitta, it's going to be easier to go out of balance with Pitta qualities. More Vata, Vata qualities. I'm going to give you a little example here of what we call Prakruti and Vikruti. So Vikruti is our present imbalance. What have we exposed ourselves to over life? So we were born, and then during our time within the womb, our mother was eating things, she was thinking things, that was adding to our dosha. Our first one, so we've got genetics at birth. So we've got the purple as Vata, the orange as Pitta, the light blue as Kapha. So we see for this constitution, they were dominant Pitta, secondary Vata, and a little bit less Kapha. At the moment when they were gestation and the sperm and the egg met. Then we had a traumatic birth. So as the baby was trying to come out, the umbilical cord was wrapped around the neck. And the baby came out and they had to cut the cord in order to get the baby out. Now the baby was receiving its nutrition through the cord. Then they pull the baby out and the baby's all purple, color of Vata. You know? So this purple color denotes deficiency. It didn't have enough air. It was going all purple. Everyone's in worry and fear. These are the emotions of Vata. It was 3 minutes before the baby breathed. But it breathes. It's all good. It's alive. But it also missed out on the nutrition inside the fluid, that umbilical cord. That umbilical cord, that oily, lubricating nutrition there is really important for the baby. You don't want to cut it straight away. You want to leave it on there for a while. There's lots of research about this. They call them lotus birth. And it shows how you can leave that on for a longer period and create more nourishment for the body, more Kapha. So they missed out on that. Kapha decreased. Then we move on to the child's at 5 years old and the family separates. Mother and the father have got anger and other things happening and they need to move apart. So we get loss, separation, change. These are all more Vata qualities. So we see the Vata rise up, the Kapha less cohesion, less family bonding that's there. Then we move into adolescence, teenage years. The teenage year, the child's like, I want to stay up late, I want to change, I want to do this. They're moving in so many directions. There's lots of study. These are all qualities of Vata. Now, they move into like fiery practices. I want to do this for my life. We'll look at these stages of life as well and how Pitta increased here at this stage. Now, the Kapha became really deficient. Once we get above a certain point, these defects start to create disease. So now we start to move into Vata imbalance diseases. The person goes and sees an Ayurvedic practitioner. In this case, the person is me. So I started to become aware of Ayurveda and the need to balance Vata. So I did my best towards achieving balance by reducing the things that were Vata. I stopped staying up late. I did all of the practices that were balancing to control my Vata, to decrease the amount of Vata qualities that were coming into me, and to increase the amount of Kapha qualities. Nourishing, lubricating, heavy, oily porridges, all of these things were important.